That way we can get done what we need to get done and get to our 7 o'clock one on time.
Great.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to actually hand it over to Anais Matisse, who's been facilitating the comp plan process with us over the past year and a half. So with that.
Thank you, Erica. I just had to update my Teams application, so all of my functions are in various places I'm not familiar with. So let me see if I do this right, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just bear with me for one moment. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen, and it looks like I don't have the option to just share an application. Oh, here I go. I'm figuring it out.
Yeah, they made updates recently. Same thing happened to me.
Yeah, it threw me for a loop. I'm glad I tried signing on a couple minutes early because I needed to update it. So thank you for just bearing with me here. Can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up? Yeah, great. Thank you. Good evening, planning commissioners. My name is Anais Maté, and I have met with you, most of you, all of you, now for a long time over the comprehensive plan process. We're here tonight to kick off the adoption process for the comprehensive plan, work that has been ongoing for the last couple of years and has been prefaced with a robust visioning process before that. So there's been a lot of work, and I'm going to walk through kind of our agenda for the evening and what we want to do for the next hour or so together. So first and foremost, welcome. As Erica said, a big thank you to you as a commission, but also your city staff for this process. It has been a long one. We have learned a lot as a team, and very appreciative of this commission's guidance, thoughts, reflections and observations throughout this multi-year process. So once again, really thank you to all of you for the work and effort that you have put in this. So tonight's agenda, I want to give you a brief overview of what this adoption process is going to look like, what our approach is, and what the timeline is. And then I'm going to give a quick recap of what we've done, where we've been, just give broad context of all of the various things that have made up this comprehensive plan. And then we're going to spend the bulk of this evening reviewing the goals and policies for blocks 1 through 3. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we want to approach that. So, I'm going to jump into just describing quickly what our approach is for the adoption process and the timeline. So we're going to start with this first work session. We're going to review blocks 1 through 3. Then we're going to meet with you at a second work session, and we're going to be reviewing blocks 4 through 6. After we've met with you 2 times in these work sessions, we're going to incorporate all of the feedback and revisions and suggestions you have, the final ones that you have, into an updated document. That updated document will be presented to you at a third work session that's going to be staff-led, so I won't be there at that third work session. And that will be sometime in July. I should have added dates here, but I'll share that in a moment. That third work session will be in July, and then that is when we will ask if you are able to recommend the document to City Council. Once that happens, then we'll have a joint City Council and Planning Commission work session where once again we'll work through blocks 1 through 3, review any minor additions or revisions that the Planning Commission had suggested. We'll do the same for blocks 4 through 6 at a second joint City Council and Planning Commission work session. After that set of joint work sessions, we'll incorporate any final revisions into a final comprehensive plan document, which will then go through 1 Planning Commission hearing and 1 City Council hearing and result in an adopted Sherwood 2040 comprehensive plan. I'll just pause here quickly in case anybody has any questions about the approach. All right,
Anais, I just want to point out, and this is Julia, while we envision one hearing, I think you mean sort of doing it combined versus block by block. And of course, if the Planning Commission or Council feel the need to continue it, they're not going to be bound to only one hearing. Just, I know you know that, but I just want to make sure it's said for everybody else as well.
Thank you for that clarification. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm not able to, I'm still working out and trying to figure out the participant list, and I'm not able to follow everyone who has their hand up, but I think, Jean, you had your hand up?
I was going to make comment about the only one hearing. I think Julia clarified and answered the question that if there's any continuances, either by the community or by the commission, that is allowed. Correct.
Certainly.
You say you're going to tell us about timeframes. Sounds like July for Planning Commission number 3.
Yes.
When does the rest? I mean, is it this year that all this goes into effect, you think, or?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yes. My apologies. I should have added dates here. The first 2 work sessions, so we have today's work session, number 1, and then our second work session will be the next time you meet, so in 2 weeks. This 3rd work session here on the top line will be in early July. Then we'll move into joint Planning Commission work sessions number 3 and number 4 at the end of July into August. Hold on, let me just double check my dates here so I'm not giving anyone any wrong information. We have scheduled the first joint Planning Commission work session for August 3rd, the 4th joint Planning Commission City Council work session for August 17th, and then the first Planning Commission hearing would be September 28th, and the first City Council hearing would be October 19th. And of course, there's room to modify those dates if Planning Commission or City Council would like.
All right. Thanks. That's the culmination of what, the last 2 years or so, it sounds like, of work overall in this? Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. All right.
Great. Next time I show this slide, I will update it with dates. My apologies. There's a lot going on here already, so I didn't want to overwhelm you, but I do want to make sure everyone has those dates so that they're able to follow along with the timeline. All right. So for tonight, more arrows pointing in different places, but we're going to review the first 3 blocks of the comprehensive plan: thriving and diversified economy, strong community culture and heritage, and strategic and collaborative governance. And then we're going to make sure that we have recorded all of your revisions or suggestions or observations. We'll come back to you in 2 weeks and go through the last 3 blocks of the comprehensive plan, take in your comments, revisions, and any observations. We'll compile all of that and then turn around another draft after we've compiled all of those edits together in one fell swoop. All right, so before I dive into the document, I just wanted to give a quick recap. Oh, excuse me, always missing a slide here. So before I do that, just in terms of tonight's objectives, in going through the goals and objectives for the 3 comprehensive plan blocks, given the immense amount of effort that this commission has already put in reviewing and providing guidance on all of these comprehensive blocks, really the purpose of tonight is to make sure that we captured everything, and if there are any final revisions or edits that we need to make before finalizing the goals and policies for each of these blocks. And I think that Erica and I spoke earlier, and we are certainly welcoming any additional edits or comments that you might have via email to Erica if you don't have, or if we run out of time to get everybody's feedback. So we'll have the discussion, and then you can always follow up via email with Erica. All right. So quick recap of this 2040 process. Multiple years we have spent on this process. Our work plan actually started way back in 2017, setting the project up, scoping it, and then kicking off our 2018 community visioning process. That spanned about 8 months or so, spring to winter of 2018. The community vision, or the Sherwood 2040 comprehensive plan vision, which is essentially the kind of formal title for that visioning process, was adopted by City Council in early January of 2019.
Is now joining.
As that was happening, the city was deep in updating of various different background and technical documents. This includes your housing needs analysis, your economic opportunities analysis, among other technical documents that are really important for the comprehensive plan. So as we were doing that, here's a quick overview of our visioning process, where we start pretty high level with goals or with visions of and aspirations of what Sherwood wants to be in 20 years, discussing that with our community, with our technical and community advisory committees, and then moving towards implementation through a comprehensive plan that is essentially the city's leading policy document that helps with determining public investment over the next 20 years. Your visioning process was really well received and quite robust. You reached hundreds of Sherwood community members through that visioning process. The visioning process was especially important because it developed a framework.
Am I the only one frozen?
Uh-oh.
Oh, I think it's Annie's.
I think it's uneasy.
Yeah.
It looks
she
like
is.
I'm back.
You might be back. There you go. Yep.
Sorry about that. I was saying that I think I was saying that our visioning process was important in that it developed a framework for the update to the comprehensive plan. It was guided by a community advisory committee, of which many of those members actually continued on to the community advisory committee for the comp plan itself. And yeah, as I said, it was adopted by City Council on January 15th, 2019. So that was a really strong and robust process, and this is where we really got the best engagement we were hoping to get with the broadest number of community members in Sherwood. And you know, the visioning process is super important because it does set the tone and the direction for the policy development of your comprehensive plan. So this is really what we're grounded in.
Commissioner Vance has a question.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah. So what specifically? See, I wasn't around back then, so I'm just at least not involved in this. So what specifically was adopted by the city council? Like, by that, do you mean some part of this is already kind of like set and established from that process? Is that, because I know you have vision, goals, policy, objectives. So is it the visions, that part is like that's set and it's now we're doing the next sections?
yeah, you're right on it. So
Okay.
what was adopted in January was a vision statement, as well as a series of 6 vision statements. And so that's the visioning process was where we identified those 6 blocks. And there's a vision paragraph for each of those blocks. And then in addition, we also adopted a set of goals for each of those vision statements. So that was adopted in January 2019. And then the comprehensive plan is taking that vision and those goals for each of those vision statements and developing policy and objectives for each of those.
Okay. So our specific component is looking at policies and objectives more than the vision and goal piece.
Certainly, but it all comes together and should work together. I mean, ideally, we are certainly looking to you to ensure that the policies and the objectives reflect the aspiration and intent of the vision and goals.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So
I
moving
think
into
Chair Simpson has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hard to see different things on my screen here.
Understood.
Thank you. I wanted to just make sure if we find a goal that seems to no longer, based on the objectives and some of the other vetting, we can, it's not that it's off limits, it's that it would be, we'd have to take it under, better consideration. Objectives are, that's the new draft document. If we change a goal, we need to have, I guess, to me, a higher level of reasoning other than, it's just doesn't feel good.
Don't like the wording or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Thank you for that clarification, Jean. And also, I will remind you that the Planning Commission did wordsmith a little bit some of the goals at certain points along the process. So there is slight change of language, small words here and there in the goals that I know the Commission had suggested throughout the process. But there's no major overhaul of any of the intent of the goals yet. Okay, so then working into the comprehensive plan, what that process looked like was over the course of 24 months, so actually just a little bit over a year and a half, we undertook a comprehensive plan process that worked through each of the 6 blocks individually. So we had an iterative process for each block. We started with compiling background information about the topics that were covered for the block we were working through. We developed also a profile, an infographic that helped distill some of the key pieces of information from the background report into something a little bit more visual and more able to share with the community. We took that information and we brought it to our technical advisory committee as well as our citizen advisory committee, and that was where we were able to review the background information, establish a baseline understanding of what are the key trends and drivers of some of the topics that are part of the block, and then discuss some of the different policy concepts that are important for those topic areas. We also, after that, met with you as a commission and city council, as well as a project advisory committee that helped guide us through all of the engagement activities. So we met with them after our first round of CAC and TAC meetings. Then we did some broader community outreach around the policy concepts that were being discussed for those topic areas. So that's where you see theme conference. That took on a number of different activities, so not necessarily a conference or summit or a meeting, but sometimes they were interviews with community groups or experts. Sometimes they were, booths at events. A lot of times they were online surveys, so they were a variety of different activities. From that feedback and from the discussions we had with our Planning Commission and our CAC and our TAC and our PAT, lots of acronyms, we developed draft policies and objectives. We pushed out that information via an online survey and then came back to the CAC and TAC with the suggested draft policies and objectives for further revision and edit. And then from that, we then moved on to a joint planning commission and city council meeting to review all of the work that had been done in that block and the revisions and iterations of the draft policies and objectives. So the planning commission and city council has been with us every step of the way through each of these blocks. And we really made sure that this process here, this process diagram you see here, was iterative, that it was flexible, particularly since COVID kind of hit us right in the middle of this process, and that it remained dynamic to respond to the project's needs as they arose. And once again, all of this is really grounded in that visioning process and always goes back to the vision and goals of that process. So that leads us to phase 5 adoption, kicking off June 2021. And as I mentioned with the dates, we should technically wrap up in October, but we will see how it goes. All right, so I know that in your packets, you got the draft document, the draft comprehensive plan document. And I was going to go ahead and give you a quick little tour of how we organized it. And then I was going to go back to this PowerPoint and just walk us through some of the key topics and key activities for each of the 3 blocks that we're going to go over tonight, and then start gathering your feedback on them. And Jean, I see you have your hand raised.
It's me again. So because the comprehensive plan's not a document that the Planning Commission has, because our other one is old, I'm looking to see if part of your recap of this document will be how the Planning Commission will use it, and what part of this document is, like, I mean, we can look at the goals and the policies, but there's a whole bunch of background information that's going to be coming later, and some of the pictures and stuff that's at the beginning. Are each one of these weighted the same if an applicant comes in for using the comprehensive plan to do a zone change or some other aspect of the document? And kind of overall, how is this tool going to be used by the city, by the community, by the Planning Commission, and by the City Council, so that we have, like, from a 10,000-foot view, why is this document, not why is it important, but how are we going to use it?
Yeah, so I am happy to start answering that. And Erica, if you want to chime in, or Julia want to chime in on your understanding of this. But essentially, the comprehensive plan lays out a policy framework that then directs more discrete implementation actions, such as updates to your zoning map and or your development code. And it also ensures or asks that any sort of concept plan or infrastructure plan that occurs, that no goals or policies in any of those plans conflict with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan lays out the overarching policy framework for the city that the city goes to when it wants to ensure that its investments are going in the right direction and are supporting the right things. Your typical development applicants will certainly look to the comprehensive plan to ensure that their applications are in line with the spirit of the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, but are beholden certainly to the development code, which at some point will need to be updated if there are updates to be made to better reflect the spirit and direction that is set in the policy framework of the comprehensive plan. So I guess comp plan is like the Bible of the Planning Commission, but the development code and concept plans, those are more the implementing arms of the comp plan.
But we've been using the development code, and that seems to trump everything. So when an applicant comes before us, they don't reference on a application by application basis. It's only the code that's been implemented that makes a difference. On a day-to-day basis, when we're reviewing applications, that's not part of the staff report. The staff report doesn't refer back to the comprehensive plan when it's making regular application decisions. So it's used when changes to the code are being done. And so you said we can't be in conflict with the comprehensive plan, but what happens when the comprehensive plan is in conflict with itself versus, housing versus economic needs, the balancing act on that. And then the last piece that I wanted to just throw out there is we've done a lot of we're only discussing the first 3 blocks, but there's a lot of information at the beginning that has to do with landform and some of the protecting the character of Sherwood. And when do we weigh those items in when we're making decisions, and can we use, that type of, I know the landform is really important because that's why Sherwood still feels like a small town. I just want to make sure that that preface information is used as a tool when the comprehensive plan is being used. and that it's not just information only.
Certainly, and I would say that, you as a planning commission can ensure that that is the case. That, the background information, the land form discussion, those are all contextual informational pieces. But you certainly are, can work to advance that as you see fit as a commission.
I think part of the question was, to what extent is it binding on developers or applicants or whomever comes in? But my read is this is what the city wants long term, and then our code just reflects it, and that kind of ends up being what we actually use day to day. But the code should reflect this, so we kind of refer back. That's at least my read.
Certainly.
But it's not like if there's this is just my read. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not like there's a conflict between this and code. Code's going to win because that's the law. For better or for worse, right? That's kind of how I view this.
Except for when you guys are considering comprehensive plan amendments, zone changes, or things that in our code refer back to comp plan consistency.
Okay.
So discretionary decisions, that's when you guys refer back to this. And then moving forward, we will work towards updating the code to, if there is a conflict, to be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Yeah. I mean, if an applicant were to appeal, say it went to court, they would not bring this document into the courtroom, I'm guessing, as evidence necessarily. It would go back to our code.
They can bring
Only,
both.
They'd bring
yeah,
both.
I mean, I think only if there's a
Yes.
code criteria that refers to the comprehensive plan.
If it refers to the
that-
plan. Got it.
Right.
Okay.
The big
'Cause
one
that
is
becomes
that,
relevant. Yeah.
yes, the one that's come up many times in my experience is zone changes.
Okay.
And that's where the conflict's going to be. We have someone that's zoned commercial that wants to be residential or vice versa. And you have policies that say we are wanting to ensure that we have adequate housing, and we have policies that say we want to do economic growth by preserving our commercial and industrial. And at that point, the applicant gets to pick which policies and objectives they're using. And that's where my concern is, how, we don't have a very good comprehensive plan now, and they get to pick which ones they go by. And so how do we determine which are the most important, and while preserving the city of Sherwood's character? Yeah.
Because code will allow both, but the plan tells us to what extent we want both, basically.
Right.
That gets tricky then, yeah. Interesting.
And I think that you guys going through this will make you more comfortable and confident in your decision making and pushing back. Right now, I think, the applicants tend to pick and choose what they think is going to get them there. But you guys, having gone through this process and being very, very familiar with the intent and all the different facets, absolutely have the ability to say, yes, but, this also applies. So I think that by adopting a updated comprehensive plan that you have been a part of, it's going to give you the confidence and the tools to make the decisions that you want to make based on the knowledge that you've gained through this process.
Got it.
Commissioner Kai has a question also.
I just had a thought on this issue. Would it be possible for there to be some type of order of priority or hierarchy established when it looks like there potentially could be one goal or policy that conflicts with another? I know that might be complex or kind of like a double-edged sword kind of thing, but I was just wondering if we might try or be able to establish something like that.
My opinion is that right now it's because we're out of balance in one way. We would look towards the council's goals and objectives to help drive where our decision making. And appreciate Julia's comment that the Planning Commission would understand the comprehensive plan, but oftentimes the staff report's already written by the time we get the first swing at an application that's coming before us. So it's hard to, yeah. So there's just, I guess the document itself is set up for conflict just by the nature of the priorities.
Yeah, and the sorry, go ahead, Julia.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'll also chime in to Jean's comment. I think in addition to what I said about the Planning Commission being more familiar, staff has gone through this process too, and is going to be able to carry forward what they have heard from the community and what they've heard from the council, and they've heard from you as well. So, but ultimately, zone changes are they're discretionary. You know, I mean, yes, there are criteria, there are code, you know, comp plan criteria, but it is all a balance. And so you don't want to be so prescriptive that it doesn't give the ability to make those discretionary decisions at that level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Erica and Joy and Anais, do you agree with that? It's sort of a fundamental.
I completely agree with that. And all comp plans are set up in that way where, you know, it is a balancing act. But you, as members of the community, you serve your community to review these land use decisions. You're the folks who have the knowledge of the community, and you'll be putting that, you know, to the test, you know, when you go through zone changes or any legislative actions.
Yeah, and the purpose of a comprehensive plan is not to, you know, pin prioritize different policies and pin one policy over another. Rather, it's really to describe the holistic, like, you know, how we're moving forward in all of these various different topic areas. And, you know, maybe there is a pinch point that happens, you know, classic pinch point, but in the jobs and housing balance discussion that I know this commission had a year and a half ago, the comprehensive plan, you know, advocates for housing, but it also advocates for jobs. And I think it's important to be able to have all of those different opportunities laid out, and then it is up to the Planning Commission and City Council, based on their own goals for that commission in their terms, to decide, you know, where, you know, what is the priority now versus what could be the priority next year or something like that. So that's also my understanding.
Sounds like we'll have to be kind of diligent and careful about when we write code referring to this when we need to, and giving us the leverage we need through it.
Certainly.
And the discretion, yeah.
Yeah. All right, I do want to move us along because we only have about 25 minutes left, and I want to give us ample time. I'm going to just quickly share my screen and give a very brief overview of the document, but then I do want to jump into each of the different blocks. So let me pull this back up. All right, so here we have this document. We provided a table of contents to you, Planning Commission and staff, so you had a chance to review the organization and the format of this document. And we did take your advice in switching the order of some of the sections, but essentially we start with an overview of what is a comprehensive plan, why are we doing it now, and how it was developed. We also include a little bit of information about what Sherwood is like in 2020. This is always nice to have as you go back to this document over the next 10 years or so or more. Then we provide an overview of our urban form. So we lay out kind of the physical development patterns that we see in Sherwood today. That helps us better understand how those development patterns might evolve over time. And then we go into the vision, the goals, policies, and objectives for each of these 6 blocks. But we start with a quick little user guide of how to read the document, as well as the overall comprehensive plan vision. So here's our comp plan. a little bit of our intro information, how the vision was developed, how the comp plan was developed, what Sherwood is like today. All of this is content you have seen before. A little quick intro on how Sherwood's footprint has developed over time and how we can describe this growth. And then, of course, kind of this combination of our political and landscape and social movements and how they've all been integrated into our landscape and created all of these different Sherwood neighborhoods. Then we go through and just kind of document the different land uses that currently exist in Sherwood, just to understand, you know, what is on the ground and how is land being used. So this is informational.
Can you pause there? Because I appreciated the land use gallery where you said 1/3 of a mile by 1/4 of a mile. So we could look at each picture and see what we were talking about by the walkable neighborhoods for general commercial and into the industrial. Why did you change the format on the residential? It would have been helpful to see a block of high density residential and low density residential in that same context.
Thanks for flagging that. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do not know why that wasn't aerial photos, but I agree with you, Jean, that those should be some aerial photos. I think in the original land use gallery, we had both aerial images, but then also images of these different housing types. But thank you for flagging that. And Erica, let's make sure to note to change those images back to aerials. Thank you.
And then one other quick one, I don't want to do too much on it. It's what is a comprehensive plan? I think if you can't explain it, I would use the first 2 sentences and like the last sentence and maybe just tiny wordsmith, but that is a really long paragraph to explain what a concept that should be 1 or 2 sentences. I know we were trying to incorporate a lot of extra information. And my thought for doing that is make what is a comprehensive plan, like I said, first 2 sentences, last sentence, and then that chart is almost unreadable. And I think it would be better to have that picture spread all the way across in a big enough font that says comprehensive plan is community vision, goals, and policies, and then the implementing block and then the planning block. That way it's bigger.
Great. We'll make sure to do that. Thank you, Jean.
And the last one, why now? It's been 30 years, not 20 years.
Great. Thank you for those edits.
And
all right, so moving along.
Mr. Giles has one comment too.
Oh.
Lost him.
Oh,
sorry.
but
no,
I did have.
I was on mute. No, so Jane, I love that comment about the too big of a first paragraph. We're supposed to, ease them into this a little, give them a short bite, but then also on the comprehensive plan vision, I think you have the same problem 1 page back where you're getting, I don't know if this is a picture of something but it's, nope, go forward. Let's see, it's page 31 in the packet.
Past the user guide.
Yep, right there on the right. Nope. Yeah, that whole the colored section there is all blotchy, so you just want to look at your res on that.
Yeah, we noticed that. Thank you. That's been flagged. Appreciate it.
Don't worry about it.
And my comment was that each one of those plan visions, it's a plan vision and then each block vision. We should repeat the block vision at the beginning of each block so that they're reiterated.
Sounds good. Great feedback. Thank you.
Is some of the data going to get updated? I'm just curious. Some of the historical data, some of it's been 4 years. Some of it's pretty old. Like we're still referring to the 2010 census. 2020 was done last year. I know some of that data is not out yet, but some of these are pretty old. But I don't know if that would also totally upend everything because that's kind of the basis for the report. Things take a lot of time, and now it's a whole new decade.
Don't throw her in a tailspin.
Yeah,
I've already derailed her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were using at the time latest data, but we can certainly check on what latest data we have.
Okay. Yeah, all right. It's probably not a big deal. I don't think things probably have changed too much on some of this now.
Yeah, appreciate it. So thanks for the feedback. But essentially, the last section is the vision, goals, policies, and objectives, organized with an introductory page along, and then followed by goals, policies, and objectives. And then the same format for each of these 6 blocks, color coded, and with the topics covered and the statewide planning goals covered on the intro page for each of these. So that is our overview. And then, at the end of the document, we will have a kind of a master bibliography of all the various technical documents that are part of the comprehensive plan, like your parks plan, the EOA, the HNA, items like that. We'll also have an an amendment history as well, where we can keep track of changes or updates to the document here, essentially a tracking log of key updates to the document and their content. And then that will be it. So we will be looking at still a fairly large document, but certainly one that is much more digestible than your current document. So I'm going to transition back. Oh, yes, Jean.
It's me again. Back to the blocks themselves. So if we're looking at thriving and diversified economy, goes back to how are we going to, as a planning commission, city council, and applicants coming forth. I ran into this before in the way our documents were read before, that the descriptive part prior to the numbered goals and policies were not entered into the discussion on appeal. When I was just a citizen and I was testifying against something, I was told that the summary document prior to the actual items didn't count, that we had to go to that. I just want to hear we have a really big one-page summary. Is this something that as a hearing authority or a decision maker, we would look at the words in this document and be able to apply that towards our decision-making process, in your opinion?
So
Go ahead.
Oh, so I believe, and I'll look into this, Jean, our code says, in the development code, to look at the goals and policies in the comp plan document themselves, because the words and the goals and policies should be reflecting your most current economic development, our economic opportunities analysis. It should be reflected in those goals and policies. Our transportation goals and policies should be, those of the TSP.
Right. So back to the narrative that is before all the goals and policies, is it language that can be used in a decision-making process? Your first statement was no.
Typically,
we have to
no.
Look at,
Not
so.
Yeah, right.
So,
because our development code only speaks to the goals and policies to be reviewed.
So to me, that is very important because of the structure of this document and how the framework is. If we have key elements of decision-making and community information in this narrative, and it's not reflected properly in our goals and policies, we wouldn't have a vehicle to ensure compliance with what the intent was. Just because it's in here, it doesn't mean we get to point to it, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, thank you. Oops.
If I can just add, I totally agree with Erica. However, if there's a situation where it's not clear what the intent is, that paragraph can shed light on the intent. But if the intent isn't relevant to the objective or policy that we're talking about, then it wouldn't be applicable. So I just wanted, there might be times where we do look at that to kind of help us answer the intent. But if you really want to make sure it's something that you can rely on, make sure it's in the goals and policies.
Right. I was reading through the narratives, which are really well done and they provide a lot of information. But if I found a piece of information about that particular and it's not spelled out in a goal and policy, it doesn't count. It has to be vetted out into the goals and policies or an objective.
I would say that the introductory pages, I mean, it's all comes from actually background information that drove the development of the goals and policies. And I would say that they help like introduce these goals and policies. I would use it as like context and understanding rather than legal, any legal commitment per se. But I don't think the introductions are written in a way that would suggest that. I hope that they are written in a way that at least sheds light on the why behind the goals and policies that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, I do want to move us because we are running out of time. I have up here thriving and diversified economy, and I was just going to say a couple of words before opening it up to you to ask if you have any final revisions or edits to this block. You have already provided us with lots of really great fodder when we reviewed this together as a team in the past. But generally, the topics that are covered here in Thriving and Diversified Economy include primarily economic development, and it speaks to Goal 9, economic development. And just to remind our Planning Commission that the goals and policies here are a direct reflection of your updated economic opportunities analysis, which is ideal. All comp plans, best ones are the ones that create parity between all of these different documents. So what you have in front of you is content that comes directly from your EOA and economic development strategy, for which there was already a significant process for in its own terms. But in addition, we also reviewed this with you twice and made sure that the language was in order. We also did some targeted outreach to numerous community members that primarily focus on economic development activities, both within Sherwood and the general area, to really ensure that this language is well written. We also had an online survey to review these policy concepts. And then, of course, we had our CAC and our TAC provide revisions. And then we had you, a planning commission, and we had city council review this language as well. So just from there, is there anything in addition that you see that we are missing, or any observations you have on let's see, we have 2 primary goals and 2 primary concept or policies with a series of objectives for each for the economic development block.
I just have one simple. Your numbering is wrong on 1-8. It should be 1-8.
I knew this was going to happen at some point. The numbering. Thank you.
There's a whole couple of sections that have the numbering went wonky, but I think
I might have you help me flag that, Jean.
Okay.
All right. So we know that the numbering is wonky on objective 1.8. Thank you. Anything else? Any other reflections on this?
This is just back to my paragraph 2 in the summary. I think this first sentence should be a sentence that stands by itself. It should tell you what the paragraph is about, and it just says this is a top priority for the council. I think it would be better stated, say diversified economic development is a top priority for the city council, just to bring clarity to the paragraph.
Thank you, Jean. I appreciate that. If you have any more particular notes, I know Erica would also probably love them written up as well, so we can keep track of them, but I know Erica is keeping track of them as we discuss.
Yep, I didn't have anything else on that.
Should I move on to the next block?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I think
Strong
we can.
community, culture, and heritage. So this block covered several different topic areas. This was an interesting block in that is probably the one that includes topics that are least related to land use in some capacity. So if you do see anything or scratching your head over some of the topics here, just a reminder that we're really focused on the ideas that are land use based. So we are talking about citizen involvement, which is actually goal 1, which is probably the least land use based statewide planning goal. And then goal 5, historic resources, and then portions of goal 11, public facilities and services. So this is where we're talking about historic and cultural resources, public, civic, and institutional spaces, and also a block where we as a team and as a commission saw a little bit more overlap with some of the other blocks. But essentially, you, Planning Commission, did review the draft goals and policies on this already. You did provide some good feedback and revisions about breaking out some concepts, some general wordsmithing. And then also we had, I do recall at one point, a really robust conversation about engaging underrepresented communities in Sherwood, as well as creating opportunities for youth to be involved in civic affairs. So just some reflections on the conversations we've had with you in the past regarding the policies and objectives here. So for this one, we have 3 goals, and we have 5 policies with a series of objectives underneath each. Are there any observations, feedback?
Guess we move on. We vetted it really well the first 2 times.
We did, yeah, we did.
Yeah, I just think if you follow Jean's guide to the first sentence about, again, just summing it up crisply. I mean, when you look at it, again, we got to not only be accurate, but there's a marketing effort here. And so I love the call out, that says here are the themes, but let's, I'll make some edits and email them on this.
Great.
I just feel like it needs to be crisp.
That'd be great. Thank you for that. And Erica will take, so any information you send over to Erica, she'll take, and then we can review it together as a commission the next time we meet, just to make sure we're all on the same page with those revisions.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. The last, sorry, did someone have their hand? We're good? All right, the last block, strategic and collaborative governance. So the topics that we cover here, this was a hefty one. Topics covered were urbanization, general land use planning and procedures, a bit about natural hazards, kind of in the context of community health and safety. So we are meeting goals 2, 7, 11, and 14. This was the block where COVID hit. I think we had a public meeting the week before everything shut down. So this was our last hurrah almost. But we also had an online survey to review all of the different policy concepts. And of course, we had the commission's review, as well as our CAC and our TAC provide edits and suggestions, as well as our city council reviewing the content here. And I think just quick reflections on kind of the things we heard in those iterations or those various drafts of these goals and policies was really placing an emphasis on transparency and communication from city government, as well as accessible kind of decision-making processes. Also emphasis on the importance of public services and really making sure that public services grow with the community so they remain commensurate with growth. And then, of course, this is definitely where we started hearing a lot about the importance of preserving and maintaining natural areas, primarily in the face of increased susceptibility to natural hazards and community safety. So
okay.
Just some sound bites there.
Okay, so inconsistency, this block is treated as one block, so I think the goal numbering should be 1 through 5, 6, whatever it is, because that's how you do it in the coordinated and connected infrastructure. Transportation is 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, infrastructure goes 4, 5, 6. So
Yeah.
this needs to do the same thing, because starting over with the goal numbering within the same chapter, because it's only going to have one vision statement, is confusing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Jean. Thanks for flagging the numbering here. I think that would definitely aid in the readability.
And then again, we vetted these out as a planning commission, did we not?
Certainly, I think 2 or 3 times.
So, and my honest statement is I ran out of time with the hearing that we are going to start in 2 minutes, that I did not dot to dot everything. So you may get me by work session number 3 dot to dotting everything. So be
That's
prepared. Plus Erica said she was sending out a 3-ring binder that included all their documents. And when that comes out, that'll help me. I have a bag on the floor of all the stuff that we've gone through, and will help me pull everything together to make sure that what I heard at the CAC meetings was reflected in this. So
Certainly, yeah, I appreciate that. And I think that the binders that Erica is sending out will be immensely helpful, because they'll include the memos that went to you and City Council at the end of each of these blocks that did a really good job of summarizing everything we did, we asked, and we heard, as well as kind of creating a paper trail of the different revisions that we made throughout the process. So yeah, I think once that goes out, I think that'll be really helpful.
Exiting.
thank you.
And speaking of those binders, you will get those binders by the end of this week. So for each theme, you'll have the community profile, you'll have the background report, you'll have the planning commission, city council, like final memo for each block, along with all the survey results that we received. So there'll be
That'd
a
be
nice
a very large packet.
for every comp plan theme block.
And we get a little hand truck too,
Yes.
or at least a bag so we can carry it around.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for your revisions and those edits that you suggested tonight. I know Erica has them. We'll go through that at the next work session to just make sure that we captured everything, and then work through the other 3 blocks. We might have a little bit more time next work session, because I won't be going all of that intro. We don't need to do again, but after that, we'll compile all of your edits and create another draft.
And we don't have a public hearing scheduled that night, so we can definitely go have a longer work session.
Okay.
Great. Thank you all so much. Good luck at your next meeting.
Thank you for your patience.
Bye.
Bye.
So we're all logging off and running over to another meeting in 30 seconds.